Hey y'all, welcome to the Moving with Millennials podcast with your favorite millennial realtors.
We are 4 top producing agents in the DFW area, and we are ready to share the good, bad, and the real life of real estate.
Whether you're thinking about getting into real estate, already an agent, or just curious about what your agent really does, join us.
Tune in every Wednesday to see what it's really like to be on this side of the transaction.
Hey guys, welcome back to Moving with Millennials. Today we were talking about how we get our business. There's so many different ways to get business, and this is such a hot topic. And what agents, I get agents all the time asking me, how do you get your leads? How were you successful in your first year? So it's just an ongoing.
I get agents asking me all the time, how does Maggie get her business?
Same, yeah, same.
I'm like,
my biggest thing is just referrals. Like I have one client that literally sends me clients business all the time.
Yeah, and we'll
it's
dive
just
into
all
that.
random.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about?
No, well, I think this is a great topic, and we're going to dive into like all the different
Specifics.
pieces. Yeah, like who we target, how we get business, because there's also random ways to get business. But this is great whether you're a new agent, you're kind of like as a brand new agent, we had a whole episode about being a brand new agent and how, getting started can be really difficult. It's like, where do you put your focus and figuring out where are you going to find your business? So I think it's always important for everyone to try everything at least once and see what works for you and what you enjoy. Because if you don't enjoy one of the ways that you can get business, then stop doing it. So yeah.
Cold call. I've never done that.
Yeah.
And
I have even tried it.
You have?
Yes,
Good
absolutely.
for you.
I have no shame.
Good for you.
I'm really scared of
Maggie's
cold
all.
Yeah.
I'm not.
And everyone's personality is
Maggie,
different.
you don't need to cold call.
I just will not.
Maggie, cold call for me.
No, I'm scared of
Just
business
kidding.
and cold call.
In.
They
I
just.
feel like Maggie needs to come in.
Oh.
Okay, so let's just break it down really quick. Like the number one place that all of us get our business, I think, is all kind of the same.
Mhm.
And that is our sphere of influence.
Yeah.
People who know, like, and trust us already.
Right.
So at least that's my number one. It should be. I talk about it all the time, and I tell like any new agents that ask me like, hey, how do I get started in finding clients? I'm like, talk to the people that already know, like, and trust you. That's really your number one and should always be your number one.
You want to nurture your database, your sphere, as much as you can. And keeping on top of mind to your sphere constantly.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that Sphere is my number one. So and I don't think we can say should be, because there are a lot of agents that build their business 100% off of cold calling and just always having new business. And then like maybe they have a team that then like supports the database nurturing or whatever.
Or like
but a majority of their leads come from cold calling or expireds or FSBOs. So I think it's hard to say like what it should come from. But yeah, I think majority of mine have come through social media, and I've worked with a lot of people, and I think that's fair for all of us. So I think maybe social media can be counted as Sphere a little bit.
It is. That's what. Yeah.
But like I've worked with tons of people that I've met on social media that I did not meet them until we worked together. We just like already naturally followed each other or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So that's kind of Sphere to me, but then it's kind of social media. Like I think they can overlap some, but not necessarily.
Right.
I think a Sphere of people that, like you said, already know, like, and trust me. Those people we'd never met in person, like lots of my clients, until we met for a consultation.
Right. Yeah. So let's dive into like this, like Sphere in general. Like how do we, I don't hate to use the word target, but how do we, market to them, or how do we talk to them, in order to turn them into a client?
Right.
Brandie, do you want to talk about how you do that?
From Sphere or from
your Sphere? And it can be, you probably talk to them through social media.
Yeah, social
media.
I think that's the biggest thing is I have my Facebook page and I update that, but then certain things I'll push to my personal page, and that's where I see my old neighbors or my parents' friends who are still in Texas, or my mom taught in Texas for 10 years, so she'll post it and share it on her feed, and so then I'll get people that way. And then once they like it, my mom will either give them a business card or I'll reach out to them, and then we just go to coffee or lunch and talk about that.
Pause. My mom watches and listens. Mother, repost my stuff.
Let's go.
Greta, I don't know that. I love that y'all all know that it's Greta
I'm
too.
friends with her on Facebook.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Mother, repost my stuff.
Bring Jake a client.
I so
But I
funny.
think that once that connection's there,
Yes.
it's easy for you to be like, well, let's go to coffee or let's go to lunch and have a conversation.
Yeah.
Even if they're not looking to buy or sell right now, they know someone who
Right.
is
Yes.
looking to buy or sell. And I think that's just having that presence, being consistent on social media. I know it takes a lot of work to be consistent, but it pays off. I think.
Right.
Crazy thing, I think just being yourself and being who you are is your
100.
brand.
Yeah.
I just got a friend who, well, she's a client who found me on Instagram, and in the roundabout of how this world has worked, her cousin played college football with Pat. And so because she reached out to him and mentioned Pat, she already had that trust because he was able
you
to
had a connection.
represent
Right,
Pat, and now she just trusted me. She's in Utah, I'm in Texas, we can't just sit down for lunch, and that just had that bond. And I think that's so important to really representation of yourself is
Yeah. And
I think with your sphere, especially if you're getting started, kind of like to start into your sphere is yes, make sure everyone's on social, you're connecting with them there. Obviously we'll talk about maybe connecting with them, through text, things like that. But I think we can all agree you probably have like a core number of people, like your family and close friends, like maybe 10 to 15 of them, that really just, calling them saying, hey, I'm in real estate now. One of the ways that you could help me in my business, if you don't mind, just if you hear of anybody looking to buy or sell real estate, like, can you just give them my information? Like, that's all you have to do.
Well, and one of my best friends who was in helping me last year, he actually would and he's in Arizona, so he would post my Facebook posts, and people moving from Arizona or knowing someone who needed a realtor, then you get a referral or just that way. So I think that, Mariana, is so important.
Yeah.
Just your best friends having your back, so sharing your stuff from your page.
Yeah.
Sharing your stories on Instagram.
Yeah.
Doing that kind of stuff is just so beneficial.
It's so important. And the other day I was talking about interest rates and how they were increasing, and I get a text or a DM from one of my clients saying, client's friend or someone related to this client, and they were like, we're ready. I helped her mom buy, and the daughter DM'd me or sent me a DM that she was ready to buy because of the interest rates. She was always texting me about the rates, staying in touch, or we stayed in touch just via text. But after I posted that story, she was like, okay, I need to jump on it.
Yeah.
And so
I think, Maggie, what you do a great job with, because maybe we can dive into social media some more now, is you, and I think all of us kind of do this in a way too, and what you should do with social is you're giving them value. Like, you're never bluntly saying hey, call me if you're looking to buy or sell. We're never really, that's not our goal. Our goal is when you are ready to buy or sell, you're thinking of us, right? So you're giving them items of value. You're talking about the rates. You're talking about, experiences on each of your transactions. So they're kind of learning and getting interested in what you're doing. And then when they think of, it's time for them to buy or sell a house, they're saying, hey, I'm going to call or, DM Maggie now. Definitely. So I think that's important with social is it's never like a grab me kind of approach. It's more of like here's items of value. Here's how I can help you, educate you. And then when you're ready, hopefully you think of me.
Right.
I think something social media is really good at for us too is everyone sees how hard we work. Maggie, I think this is something, again, that you're really good at. We see every day your showings or you're talking through things, and people relate to that and see that you work hard for your clients, and so they want that and work with you. So when they are ready, they remember that.
For sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What else on social media? I mean, there's more tactical ways. We can go, I'm not going to go into details on tags and stuff like that, but we add tags, things like that. So random, we may get someone who we don't know that they follow us on social, and then they may search us and find us and they're ready to buy or sell. But that's more to me, not prospecting. That's more marketing.
Yeah.
Right.
Brandie, you got a client from someone, or you did a post. What?
Nothing. Just here to sip my tea on this one. I
Sorry,
said
jump on in.
20 minutes, I feel like.
What?
Go ahead.
Okay, what did you say about that?
No,
Oh, gosh.
but I have had a check.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
It's good because everyone's passionate. So
okay, it's
sure.
just you could go. Okay, Brandie, you got a client from posting something random, not about real estate, Bible study or something that you didn't know.
A girl found me because she saw that I was religious and Christian, and she messaged me and she's like, we've been looking for a Dallas realtor, and I just felt connected to you and it was one of my first posts this year talking about how I wanted to read my Bible study more and just being honest and open about our whole life. And I thought that was really, really, and you connect on that and you have something to talk about. And then she had kids and husband and stuff like that. So it was cool.
Yeah.
May I speak?
Jake, please take it away.
Sorry.
No, it's not. It's like I have not been doing. So if you are listening and not watching, and I think if you watch, you probably don't see this. A lot of times we'll put like one finger on the table if we have something to like add to the conversation, and I just have been forgetting to do that. So they have been volleying stuff back to each other, and I just like haven't jumped in. So it's my.
You have to just jump.
I know. Yes. Well, I mean, I should know that at this point. So for me, like a lot of my stuff on social media actually comes from like doing home tours. It's like I will do like video home tours on my stories, and a lot of times that's when people are like, "Oh, where is that?" And I'm like, "Well, it's here. What are you looking for?" Like, and just like start those conversations naturally. So that's a big one for me. But then I also and we all do this, of course, and every agent should be, like you said, just adding like updates, like news stories even, or sharing things from big names in the business that like always post where rates are going or what appreciation levels we can expect. So like I just try to always like reshare that information again, because it's just about knowing the market.
Right.
And then I just try to like look like I'm having fun. And look like it at least. And then then people want to have that same experience. I think for me, I'm far more introverted than people realize.
Yeah.
And so social media is a chance for me to look extroverted and and so get stuff out there. So that's why I think I rely heavily on social media as marketing, but also in a way as my prospecting, because I'm not going to be the one to do the typical prospecting methods.
The one thing that always shocks me about social media is how many people actually pay attention to my social media, which I don't know why that shocks me, but it does.
It's popular.
I mean, I'm I don't feel like I'm that interesting. And then people are like, I love when you do this. And I'm like, great. Okay,
You're
cool.
the best.
I guess I'll do more. But I feel like sometimes I don't do enough. I definitely, lately I haven't been doing as much video as I normally do.
Your TikToks are unbelievable.
When I do
the
that,
way
they're
you
always
do
so
them
fun.
is so good.
But see, here's what's so funny. Even y'all saying that, I'm like, oh, you've seen them? I don't know why it blows my mind that people see my
And
videos.
I posted one and then took it down within 5 minutes the other day, because I was like, this is just,
I
don't feel like it fits my brand
I
as
get
much as
nervous.
me.
Mine either.
Okay.
And Mariana, yours are so good because they're not the same
I don't look
reels
dumb,
as
right?
No.
and
No,
they're
it's
not
not.
you use
I think I would.
the trending voices, but you present
the
it in a
Lion
different
King
way
one.
that I haven't seen.
Yeah.
Like
So
the
good.
I didn't post that one because
You need to.
Yeah. Well, I have out-of-state clients right now, so I feel like that wouldn't be great if I saw that.
But yeah, so I feel like that fits. That is you. I feel like you're
bubbly,
more
and
fun, slightly goofy, in a good way.
Yeah, I am.
And that's just not that doesn't fit my personality as
Same.
well.
Yeah.
So it's I could do the one where it's ring 5 reasons you should buy, where I'm not gonna talk into a voiceover, but I could do that maybe.
Yeah.
Here's what's
It's
funny.
it's just finding what works and fits to your personality, because you do have to be true to yourself.
That is
Well, I think, let's just talk about it. I think video is super important. So whether you do the little
Absolutely.
reels, or you do stories, or you do some sort of video series, and it could just be a couple minutes. I think video is really important to do if you're going to dive into social.
It's a must.
Because just them seeing your face and seeing the text is one thing, but hearing your voice and seeing your face at the same time, there's a whole nother connection. You do video though.
I do it, but it takes me. I'm kind of introverted too, and I hate being out there.
I'm not sure if you know this, but you're on video right now.
I know. It makes me so nervous.
I
to
think
video
people
myself.
are there. First of all, we're all our biggest critics, right?
I know.
So.
I mean, I'm pretty into myself. No, I'm just kidding.
Jake's I know I'm great on video. But we
Jake's
really
my
are.
videos are the best.
So
Well, my house tours probably are but yes, I agree with you. We're all our worst critics, but that's why it's for me, I can do a house tour probably better than most agents, because I can talk about the design and construction so much more.
You're more confident in that.
So it's I'm confident, I'm comfortable. Those I can record in one take, no sweat off my back and no anxiety.
But when your face is in it.
I know, my face will be in it in the beginning. I always do a little introduction of I'm going to tour blah, blah, blah today.
Brandie, you're good about showing oh, this is my 6th time to record this, or admit to that
the
you
reality of
Yes.
I'm not doing this one time. I've sat in my car with this guy staring at me over here doing it.
It's always so awkward. I'm always looking to see if people are.
Well, I think the biggest thing is being that natural, especially in stories and stuff, being that natural, messing up whatever, earlier Brandie went, and I'm just keep it in there.
You just keep going.
Yeah, you just keep going, because it's just like that's you and that's like your person. I don't know. That's like you're just talking to them like they're right there.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
you can't take it back. Like don't act like, oh, I'll just delete this. Like no, you say it like they're there. Because if I'm talking to you, Jake, like, and I mess up with whatever I say, I can't take that back.
It's real life.
Yeah,
yeah, and people
and do
appreciate
it more.
That. Yeah.
The more you do it, the more comfortable you will get to.
For sure. I
Maggie,
forget what I was about to say.
Have you had, like, you're really good about sharing Hank and your, like, personal life. Do you feel like people with dogs are always, like, attracted to you?
See, I'm like, I feel like I've been slacking in that lately. But yes, I'll get, like, more engagement when I post, like, personal things or, like, dogs. Yeah. Anything, like, picture related.
Yeah.
I get more engagement. And what I was about to say, I just literally forgot.
That's good. Jake has something to say.
It'll come back. It'll come back to you. Similar to me with JC's videos, like that's the reason I do the lunchbox videos with my daughter is because that just like makes people think of me or really of her. She's the little star of that show. But you know, it's just mind share. So then people just know me and they know that I'm the dad that with the really cute daughter that likes to talk about her lunches.
And that's relatable.
Yes,
so relatable.
absolutely. If yours is about social media, go ahead because then I was gonna like try to transition us.
Yes, well, it's about stories, like not just talking about like the wins, but also the losses and like just not the
bad
only
parts
the good.
too.
Yeah,
like
which
the nitty gritty.
Yeah, because that's real. Like real estate, it's not perfect.
Right.
It's
So social media is more of, most of us would agree, it's more on the marketing side.
Right.
It's not as much prospecting. You certainly can use it to prospect. And like that's the goal is for your marketing to turn into prospecting. Is there anything that you do that is more prospecting based?
On social?
No,
Oh,
in general.
outside.
So that's what I said. Social is more marketing based.
Gotcha.
Yeah, go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, so prospecting wise, I mean, we definitely we have our database, you know, in an Excel sheet right now because we don't really use
So fancy.
a CRM at the moment, but we just have them all in one place and we do send, I mean, I guess emails are prospecting, but we also pretty regularly communicate. Like whether we do, like we had a client event this year, so we communicated with every single one of our past clients, top sphere, that kind of thing, and invited them to that. So that's part of the prospecting where we're bringing them in, and maybe it's not necessarily us always talking about real estate, but it's like staying in contact with them.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
What I was going to say earlier, like my brain is like in a million directions. Is I got a seller from a postcard that I had just sold a house in that neighborhood, and I sent a just sold newsletter or not newsletter postcard, and got a seller out of that. So that's considered prospecting.
I do postcards.
Yeah. I think right now, especially this year, we have had several, like we're almost using our buyer criteria to find listings because of how low the inventory is. So we've been doing that too, like the I have a buyer letters and postcards, trying to get listings. So we do some of that for prospecting as well.
What I was going to mention is that like specifically for some buyers, like sending letters directly to, you know, people that fit their criteria saying, I have a cash buyer that really wants to purchase your home and they'll let you live in it for extra time after you close. Like, how can we make a deal? You know?
Right.
So I think that's like one version of prospecting that in a normal market, I probably wouldn't have to do, but because of the market that we're in, we're having to go above and beyond to try to get creative to find properties for our buyers that would maybe not be they're not on the MLS. It's like trying to find an off market property for them. That's heavy prospecting.
Yeah.
Right.
My aunt, I told her that we do that for some of our buyers when we can't find homes. And she said that she used to get postcards at her house that said that, but she didn't know that they were for real clients. So if you do get a postcard looking for that, we are serious. We are looking for a home to sell.
Most agents are serious. I think some will just send a letter like saying like your neighborhood's popular. Like a lot of people are trying to get like, it depends on like how it's worded. If you get one that's an actual description of someone like looking and like what their criteria is, then it is a real client that we are trying to help them. Like
it's not just like I have a buyer, you know, or I'll find you a buyer. It's like specific criteria, like Jake said.
Yeah. So what are because I always talk about like having three main streams of like lead generation, right? So mine are, we've already talked about a couple of these. Mine are definitely my sphere of influence. And I include that as being like my past clients, getting referrals from my past clients, things like that. Also, social media. So kind of ties in with sphere of influence, but using social media more as like I said, with hashtags, we do some, marketing, advertisement that we pay for, things like that to get leads. And then my third one is kind of using my listings as a income source, or a lead source. So that's also something great. If you get a listing as an agent, your goal should try to get at least 2 clients out of that one listing. So prospecting that or marketing that property in the neighborhood. Maggie talked about, just listed postcards. So definitely doing that. Talk about open houses, so you can get business from doing an open house, that listing. So there's all sorts of ways to get business from the listing.
Yeah, and sign calls. So that's another major one, is making sure. So like open houses is going to be like kind of the main way. You typically are going to get at least a couple leads off that. A lot of times people come through and they have agents, which is perfectly fine. And then you'll have some that come unrepresented, but then sign calls. I always get sign calls.
I've gotten a buyer out of a sign call.
And I used to be the not smart agent that just like answered their question and then like let them get off the phone. And now like I'm like, oh my gosh. So now I'm like, great. Like if this is like, now I turn it into prospecting.
Yes,
like I try to convert now. Yeah,
for sure.
So that's an important part.
I think a big thing that I've learned within the last 6 months is I have no shame going and meeting small business owners and giving out my business card. I give my business card to everyone I talk to, and I think that's just something I used to be too shy to do, and now I'm just like, hey, I'm a realtor, I sell houses, here you go. And I think diving into the community, going into the small businesses in your little downtown of your area, just talking to people, and people want to work with people they respect, love, and trust. And so just becoming that person to different people. Yeah. Plugging especially in your community helps you so much.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely plugging in. And even if it's not like you are going to all the businesses in the community, at least plugging into some sort of organizations, networking groups, if you're, say you want to join like a sorority alumni group, like plugging into different groups to make connections. Especially I have a lot of new agents who say like, well, I don't know a lot of people, I just don't have enough people to put into my database. And I'm like, well, then you need to learn how to meet with people to add to your database and your sphere.
And I don't know if we've talked about this in a previous episode, but what is the sheet where like, okay, if you're like, there's a sheet from Bold, if y'all are familiar, but it's like
A through Z.
So it like lists your teacher, or like thinking of people who you can contact, like if you're new to the area and you're like, I don't know anyone. Well, you probably have someone who does your hair.
It would be like attorney or
D for dentist or doctor or so that activity was
I do not know a zoologist. What would the Z be?
Z, I don't remember.
But that was really helpful for me starting out. It's just like,
Identifying who is part of your sphere. I think that is a very big objective that agents have, where they're like, they don't think of it as like, 100 people. Like, you can't tell me you don't know 100 people. Yeah. You do. Like, you probably could think of 100 people if you did some activity like this, but they think of it as like someone that they have to call right away in that moment and ask them for business. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that. Even like a lot of my clients now are people I went to college with, 10 plus years ago, and even high school now. I'm helping some friends from high school. It's like I haven't talked to some of these people in a really long time, but I've reconnected with them through social media or however, is normal for us to communicate, just to rebuild that connection. So it's not like,
I think a good way to do it, and I just like thought of this. So like instead of the A through Z thing, like if you had to do wedding invitations, like who would you invite? Like, like think of that, like and come up with a guest list basically. Well, that's really the people that you should be, re-engaging with. Yeah.
That's when I started my database or got into real estate, I used our wedding list to start out and then just have added to it. So that's a great one.
So smart.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because you have like everyone's emails, addresses, contact information.
Right.
So other than, because I'm just curious what you guys do too, because I'm also always looking for ideas, other than like contacting them through social media, are you contacting them regularly through like email, phone, text?
So you're the only one with an email newsletter, and we all don't like you for that.
I have been getting my flow. I worked hard on my flow desk this morning, so I've started trying to get into that because I think it's so important.
Yeah, we send it at least once a month. Yeah, once a month I'll just say once a month we do the monthly newsletter. We send we have a holiday campaign. We send random emails like either announcements or like thank you. Like we won like first or number one team for the month. So we sent like a thank you guys, for supporting us, that kind of stuff. So we do communicate with them through email.
One thing that I think you're good at is you like putting together those margarita things.
Yeah,
Cinco de
client
Mayo.
gifts.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, yeah.
And
Popeyes.
I try to do Popeyes, I'd say once a quarter. Like I dropped mums off at my clients' front doors, just happy fall. And a handwritten letter is so meaningful to so many people. And it just takes a little bit of our time and is so, they just remember that. And they remember like you care, you really genuinely care about these people and they feel it. So then they're going to refer you out.
Right.
Yeah.
I know I have a good one for my holiday Popeye.
And you also do a VIP,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like, you could talk about that.
Yeah, so we also have like a VIP group. So that's basically just like our past clients. So we have a Facebook group that we communicate with them once a week at least, or we'll maybe do like a little giveaway or something like that on there. It's kind of a random thing. But yeah, they get like they get the newsletter, and then if we have any VIP, like the client event we did, they get invited to that kind of stuff.
So your monthly emails only go to this VIP group?
They go to them and
database.
anybody who, well, and even people outside of my database, because we let people sign up for the monthly newsletter, so anybody can sign up to be a part of it too.
Cool.
I keep in contact with my clients however we initially came into contact with each other. So like if our relationship started via social media and whatever, and then we've closed on house, it's like that's how I'll continue to keep up with them.
Yeah.
But if they're like more of a friend that like we were friends already outside of social media and like have a real relationship, then like of course like I text and call and just keep up with them. And I don't have it necessarily like set to a schedule of like, okay, well in week 36 of the year I'm calling A's and W's. I know that there are people that do that and that works for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I just try to keep it more organic, like, oh, saw this and thought of you, how are you doing, and check in on people that way. Or, this is coming up for the year or anniversary, like something like that. I just try to keep it much more organic.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's important to do that, but it is like, I know I'm speaking to the choir. Kaya. So I'm speaking to the choir right here, but having some sort of system in place is really important too, to be consistent. I'm not saying like I'm great at that, but it is definitely something to like have a CRM or something like that. Maybe all of us can like sit down one day. I know we all struggle a little bit with that.
For sure.
Yeah.
On an Excel sheet. Preaching or speaking?
Speaking, preaching.
Preaching.
Yeah,
Preaching.
You know what I'm saying. Okay. Sorry.
Baby
brain.
It's the baby.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny to me.
You're so systematic though.
Yes, you are. Yeah,
That
you
is
are.
true.
Yes.
But you said something, Jake, like you were talking about like how you met that person. Say you originally were talking through social media, so that's how you communicate with them. Actually, I heard that somewhere and it kind of was like a light bulb in my brain where I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to have to call like 20 people a day. Like these people don't want to hear from me via phone, and it's kind of true. But what she said was communicate with the people the way they want to be communicated.
Right.
Yeah, you come to them.
Do they want? Yeah. Would they want me to call them? Like there are people who they would appreciate a phone call. There are people who are like, do not call me. Maybe send me a text. And others are like, DM on social media sounds appropriate. So
I can't remember. Oh, and either in Ignite or something we teach, it's like communication protocols. And so it's like that's how they've established their preferred method of communication. So you respect that.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad they've changed that, because when I got into it in 2013,
I teach that class.
Well, I'm glad you do that, because when we got in 2013, a text and a social media DM did not count as a contact. And I was like,
crazy. Yeah.
But I think after you've worked through someone with a transaction, you know how they want to communicate.
Absolutely.
After 30, 45 days, I know some of my clients love to talk on the phone and some of them love a text message and some of them just don't want to talk.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I posted that meme the other day. It was like, it was like, if you're thinking about call me, do not. And I like my little caption for it was like, there are 5 people in the entire world that'll answer my phone. Not business related, but like other than that, there are 5 people in the world I'll answer my phone for. Otherwise, I'm sending you a voicemail and I'll text you or call you back like if it's really needed.
right.
Yeah.
Work wise, of course, like you have to answer your phone.
Sure. Yeah.
Definitely. You have to and back to like the ways of communication, like you have to differentiate to your client's needs. Like I had a seller a while back, and it was only text or email, written communication, because he had a hearing like issue, or he couldn't hear as well. So like that was how we communicated. And even like up at the listing appointment, he was like, move, like, I know we have to meet now, but like my best method of communication is
Yeah.
I've had a client that was it was email or in person. Did not like phone calls, did not like text. So it was either email or you come over and we'll discuss.
Like an older person? Like
there was several situations there.
It's
and
so random. Email or
For
in
me,
person?
that makes things very difficult because I am the person, I want a paper trail for everything.
Right.
So it just was very difficult.
So you emailed.
Yeah.
mainly.
So I emailed mainly, or when we would meet in person, I would always have my iPad open and I would let her know I'm taking notes. That way I
Right.
don't forget anything. It's not for any other issue except for like, I just want to make sure that I remember everything we
Right.
talked about.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I will email you the notes when we're done.
Okay, so we
Yeah.
talked about sphere of influence, so your people who you
Yep.
already know, like, and trust. We talked about social media, how we use that. We kind of dabbled into, we talked about maybe doing some postcards, using your
Letters.
listing, things like that. Let's dive into open houses. I think that's a huge, it's another main lead revenue or whatever that you could get
Lead
business
generation,
from. Especially as a newer agent, if you're listening and you don't have a listing, you don't have any, clients in the pipeline, things like that. Open houses are a great lead generation source. I know that was one of my number ones when I was getting started.
That's how I started my business.
Yeah. And
open houses.
And there are agents who are looking for people to help them with the open houses.
Right.
So if you're looking for something, I mean, we have a Facebook group where you can get some, but reach out to an agent that you look up to or that's maybe kind of helping you out, and they can help you find an open house too.
So I tell people with open houses, because like Brandie said, you can use other agents' open house or listings to do an open house on. Give them credit. I always say, like, courtesy of the listing agent. But you treat that listing like it's your listing. And I always tell them, I'm like, do a video around it, prospect on social media about it. And that looks like maybe a flyer that you post out, do the flyer in person. Really, you want to kind of go all out on that open house and treat it like this is your listing and your goal is to get it sold. Even if you don't end up selling it, open house, the buyers and sellers who walk in the door and are unrepresented, they're going to see how hard you're working for that listing. And they're going to look at you as a professional. So.
Right.
From one of my early, like first couple months open houses, I have a lead that turned into 3 transactions.
Nice.
Yeah.
3 purchases. So
and from one open house.
And
from one lead from that one open house.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Just be there, working hard, smiling. Know your stuff.
When
people walk through the door, you need to know how many square feet, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms,
what year it was built,
how big the lot size is,
how old the roof is, how old. Yeah, you've got
all the tips.
Seller's disclosure. I think that's the thing is some people just think like, I'll show up and get the leads. Well, to get those leads, you have to look competent. And competent is knowing you have to read the seller's disclosure. You've got to read the full MLS description. You've got to know all the things.
HOA amenities.
Know what documents are loaded in the MLS so that they can refer to them.
Right.
If the agents do come with them.
Yeah, because anytime someone else hosts an open house for me, I call them and say, hey, just, here's some like extra information you need to know about. Because it may be something where, like, maybe the seller told me, like, a little trick or whatever about, for example, there was one listing I had where if you pulled on the bookshelf, like, it opened up and there was, like, a little hidden room behind it. So you may not have known that.
Right.
I mean, I put a little sticky note on it, but it was...
not
a little sticky note, but I put like a little, thing so people knew, like, hey, a little hidden room back here for other buyers and stuff. But I would let the agent know that's hosting the open house, like, hey, this is something the agent or the seller specifically, showed me. It'd be cool if you also knew about that to show the buyers. Yeah.
I think one thing I did too with my very first open house, we were both in, what's it called when your first 12?
Ignite.
We were in Ignite together. We did an open house together. And so, like, it was just, like, our first time ever being in an open house. And that helped me gain that confidence because we were there to kind of help each other.
Shadowing.
So, just using your resources, really.
Right.
Definitely. And taking advantage, shadowing. Donna Lebo, who's my sponsor, or, like, she was, or still is my mentor, I guess. Sponsor.
Yep.
But getting started, I learned from her. I shadowed her. We did a couple open houses together and, I went to her for information. So having someone that you can go to is
absolutely
so important. I think someone had mentioned that on one of the question boxes, like,
they want to talk about coaching and mentor. I feel like that could be a whole episode to talk about.
So we'll have to do that.
Something Donna does, and I don't know if like you still do this, I we'll typically do this depending on what type of listing it is. If it's a townhouse or condo, it's a little more difficult, but door knocking
Yeah.
a couple days before the open house to invite people, in the neighborhood to come see it. That's a good way to pick up listings. It's also a good way for them to mention like, hey, like, oh, I do have a sister-in-law and brother that have been trying to get into the neighborhood, or I do have a friend that's trying to move in.
Right.
Yeah.
So just as a way to get that out there, and you can usually like leave some sort of marketing material behind with those people too. So it's like that doubles, exponentially increases your chance of getting a lead.
A good tip on that, what I would do when I was hosting a lot more open houses, especially at the beginning of my career, is I would door knock, the 50 houses around the house in the neighborhood, and I would leave them a flyer that, was about the open house. But in the top, it said something about, like, it was a 30-minute window that was actually before the open house started, where it was a neighbor-only preview. So it's like they had a specific time that they were able to come to the house. And I think by doing that, it put it into their head that it's like, oh, we're supposed to be here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there's a time period for them to be there. And I remember that worked really well for me. And I did get listings in the neighborhood from that. Just
That's
talking
really
to them.
smart.
It makes them feel like they're welcome in the house. I think there's like this weird connotation when there's an open house, like, can we go in? Can we not go in? Like,
because most sellers in the neighborhood are not looking to buy that house. They're just looking because they want to see what updates that
That's what I always
they made.
In the door knocking, I always tell people, like, it's just a chance for you to see, like, how your house stacks up to your neighbors and, like, see what they've done.
And that's what
people are like,
that's what they're there for. We know it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And which is fine. We want them to be there because potentially we could help them if they're thinking about selling their house.
There's always at least one neighbor.
Yeah.
I do the same, actually.
Yeah.
In my own neighborhood.
Of course, yeah.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about farming is a whole nother way that you could get business. I don't personally farm. I know some agents are very successful in farming, but let's just talk about what is farming. Yeah. So if you're wanting to do that, listeners know what to do.
It is heavily and consistently reaching out, contacting in many forms, one specific geographic area typically. So you'll pick a neighborhood and however many houses that has, they get consistent, postcards from you. You try to host as many open houses in that neighborhood, even if there are other listings, that way your directional signs are up and you're door knocking in that neighborhood consistently. You're doing drop-offs, you're doing community events, coat drives,
showing your face.
Yes, you're in that community actively and as much as possible and just the active pace.
Right.
Yeah.
I have something that kind of goes off of farming. If no one has something to say about farming really fast.
Yeah.
Have you sponsored events for JC? Because this is something like I'm starting to do once the kids, like Joe and Tootie go to gymnastics every week. And so we've become active in this gym. And so I've thought about like sponsoring and using my business to sponsor meets or tournaments or...
There just have been less opportunities as JC's kind of gotten to the age where she would be really active in those things. There's been less opportunities because of COVID.
Right.
I imagine myself doing that in the future.
We did soccer last spring. Joe hated it, but to get stickers and like when each week you had to bring a snack or water, and if it was the water bottles, we'd get stickers of like my business card. That way, and that's just like little things you can do that just put your name out there. And if people always see you sponsoring in your community, then they're going to want to support you because you're giving back to your community.
Definitely.
And then those water bottles are a write-off.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, really. And it's so funny you guys say that because I remember when I was getting into real estate and everyone would talk about like how they'd go to the PTA meetings and like go to the things. And I was like, well, I can't do any of that. Like it'd be really awkward. Well, it'd be really awkward if I showed up to a PTA meeting and I don't have a kid that goes to school there.
And now like I'm in PTA, but like the meetings, like because of COVID, it's so limited in like what ways you can participate. So I'm just like, well, I mean, what's the benefit of having a kid? No, I'm just kidding.
No, that's what I was going to say is I'm like, I always was so excited to be like, oh, I can't wait to have a kid because then I'm going to make so much business off of my baby.
I feel like things are getting better with COVID though. Like there's more in-person things. I don't know.
There are. It just depends on the type of activity and how strict.
I feel like out here in Rockwall County, no one's doing. Everyone is like back to life and doing everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so farming, we talked about, that's kind of like great. Yeah, and the networking is huge.
Yep. So that's the same thing for me. I go to certain, here, like in our area, like there's a couple of different like nonprofit type groups or whatever that I either volunteer with or I make sure I go to like their events and things like that and network within those. I'm part of an agent to agent referral network. So like networking is also a very big one for me.
Yeah.
Despite being so introverted, it's like those are the things that I'm like, okay, I can be social for this.
Right. Yeah. And you want to do it with something you enjoy too.
Absolutely.
So,
That
like,
makes it so much easier.
don't just like sign up to, do all the things because you feel obligated to do it to get business. Like, and I think that's also like people are going to know if you come to a PTA meeting and the whole time all you're talking about is work and handing out business cards, they're going to be like, oh, okay, the next time they see you.
Yeah.
So it's very organic. It's building a relationship with them. It's going to come up. What do you do for a living? And that's where you can build that connection with them.
Absolutely.
I think it has to be very organic.
That's a part of your brand too, right? Like people know like, oh, she loves coffee. She's always at the coffee shops and then that pays back or you give back.
Yeah.
You really stick to truly who you are and what you believe in and things you love and support. And then it's easy to organically build that business.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Speaking of building connections or with like I went to Lake Highlands. I live in Lake Highlands. I cheered for Lake Highlands. So last year during COVID, the cheerleaders could not raise money at their normal like in-person clinic for their end of the year banquet. So me and another lender teamed up and they did this, you've been palmed by the LH cheerleader. So we chipped in and did like little pom-poms and the signs with our logos and stuff. So just...
By the way, I think while we're talking about all of this, everything I think should be documented through social media. Like being able to, like, hey, we're sponsoring and we're giving away pom-poms. Like, this is what we're doing. Like, that's something you need to be like showing on social media because then they're seeing you, give back to the community, but also like are reminded about real estate.
Definitely.
And then that's something you can put in your newsletter too.
Yeah.
You put in your newsletter and then you call your sphere. Maybe you have other friends that would love to get involved, and say, hey guys, I'm, sponsoring this event, and I know you also would love this as well. Would you like to contribute financially, whatever, and that you're connecting with them. So I think it all can go hand in hand.
And how our office did the little supply drive stuff, the bus.
Yep.
We all documented that.
Yep.
And we also, I included it in my newsletter. I included it, and we sent a whole email just about the school drive to collect supplies, and a few of my clients they did.
Yeah,
same. And family members.
Yeah. So we talked about that. We talked about farming. Let's talk about the more like, I know none of us really do this, but I think we need to talk about it because it is a way to get business. Expireds and for sale by owners. So let's just talk about what that means.
I'm scared of them.
What is it?
Well,
we don't want to scare you about it because some people, it's their personality.
That's
I think
true.
Jake had the best. I think on a meeting with Laura, you talked about it. You called the FSBOs, and you don't even like try to steal the listing, I guess, from them. You just say, "Where are you going next?" Like you talked about, like just asking them how you can help them.
I did do this
in the future.
For a while. Yes.
Yeah, but then they might trust you and get your business to sell their house.
They
also.
possibly could. Yes.
So let's back up. When it comes to for sale by owners and expireds, what you can do is you can purchase lists. There are companies where you can purchase lists of people who either have a house that they're trying to sell on their own for sale by owner, or that maybe their listing expired, meaning it didn't sell on the market. So now it came off the market, and it becomes now you're allowed to contact those sellers because they no longer have an agreement with the previous listing agent.
Right.
So you can purchase those lists, and I know people do it at a high level. The conversions, may not be as well. They could be very, depending on how consistent you are.
Depending on your script.
Yeah, depending on your script, there definitely needs to be, what am I trying to say? There definitely needs to be script practice and like learning objections because you will get those. But also you need to stay consistent. We hear that it takes 7 contacts before you even maybe could get an appointment sometimes. So just staying on track and consistently contacting them until it turns into an appointment is key when it comes to for sale by owners and expireds.
Yeah.
I think
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I have contacted them when we're looking for off-market properties.
100%.
Yeah, I don't mind doing that at all. Have no problem. And I know you used to get the list too, right? Like,
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to get it, and I do still like scan it really quick to see if, especially right now, we talked about the low inventory, especially if I have a buyer who it fits exactly what the for sale by owner, or expired look is, the criteria, then I will 100%. And I think I sold 2 or 3 for sell by owners this year on the buyer side because of that. But that's also great. Say you go into the buy, you actually have a buyer. I think it's important that you don't lie about that.
Correct, yes.
But you have a buyer, you go there and you find out that the house probably isn't going to fit 100% what they're looking for. Maybe it does need too much work, or something's just not going to work for your client. At that point, there is an opportunity for you to be able to try and get the listing, because you do still want to help that seller at that point get the most money and take the stress of selling the house. I can't tell you how many times for sell by owners are like, I will never do this again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what we do for a living.
That's another common thing is people will take that. So you don't always have to pay for a list. Like that will definitely give you like phone numbers and sometimes email.
Sure.
So if you are wanting, like you're more of like a boots on the ground person, you can get a for sale by owner. Like you can pull those just on certain public websites.
ForSaleByOwner.com, I think is one.
And so you can get those on websites. And if you wanted to go knock on their door, or there are certain agents that will drop off a packet of all of the paperwork you'll need to get a home through a transaction. And it's, an intimidating, really, thick packet of paperwork. And then they'll put in like tips and tricks, and then also like a note about like, if you need consultation, I'm happy to meet with you. They'll just drop those off on front doors.
Yeah.
So there are, tons of methods and tons of ways to reach out to those people in that way, if that's a lead generation source that you're interested in.
We did do expireds for a little while when there were expireds. Right now there's not as many because of the market.
Right.
But when there were a lot of expireds, we used to put a little packet kind of similar to that, but we would print out their MLS sheet and then we would literally highlight what was wrong with it. And say like, you need to get professional photography done. Like, here are all the things, like contact us and we'll talk about like a more personalized plan to get your home sold. And it's like, we didn't really dog on the other agent, but we're like, look, this is why your house didn't sell. And if you listen to me and you need to get this house sold, let's meet.
Right.
So
and this
also,
go ahead.
It's important. Prospect for sale by owners or FSBOs and expireds. Do not prospect temporary off markets. Those are still under a listing agreement.
Right. Like
I have a temporary off market, and I have an agent that has been trying to prospect my client, and I'm like, I will turn you in. Please stop harassing my client.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saying like, I have basically like telling like, I have a buyer, I can save you 3% if you don't relist.
Nope.
I'm like, it is still under a listing agreement, and that is breaking our ethics.
Yeah, you have to be very careful. And on that note, do be careful. You just got to like side note this.
Oh my gosh.
On the do not call list.
Yes.
Yeah, so if they're on the do not call list, you need to be careful of that, because we can get fined and
God, it's expensive.
all sorts of things if they're on it and you call them. Yeah.
Yes.
And solicit.
And
business.
then no soliciting signs on front doors. I mean, those two, there are certain cities that if someone has a no soliciting sign on their door and you go ahead and knock on it, you can be fined.
Our neighborhood's one of them. It says in the front.
Some cities are not some cities are not that way, but certain ones are, and you will get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, for sure. We may be running out of time.
I was going to say, let's just recap really quick. Okay, so we talked about sphere of influence. We talked about social media. Talked about farming. We talked about using the listing. We talked
prospecting
about
prospecting
letters. We talked about open houses. We talked about farming. We talked about expires for sell by owners. That's 8 right there.
Diving into the community.
Yeah, networking. I mean, you could do agent to agent referrals. So like connecting with other agents in other states and areas for people who have, clients looking to move to your area or vice versa. Maybe you need to refer them out. Is there anything else we're forgetting? I mean, there's so many other ways.
There's probably
but I want to say those are like a good list.
Absolutely.
Yeah. To get at least, hopefully you started.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
Or even if you're an existing agent and you just need to refresh kind of how you're doing business.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I would stick to like find one that you get really good at, maybe add it to a second or third lead generation source. And it doesn't mean that those are the only places you're going to get business. It's just the ones that you are spending time to get business. And then there's going to be organic. I'm a huge believer. And if you're just working in the business, say you're making, the calls and you're doing the things. And if you're doing the activities, maybe that doesn't necessarily get you an immediate result from that activity, but all of a sudden, guess what? Someone calls you out of the blue and says, hey, by the way, I need to buy a house. I'm a big believer in just work the activities and the business will follow.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
So
anything else?
Do y'all have any suggestions?
If we forgot one, you guys
Comment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let us know how you're getting business.
Let us know your favorite method. Like,
Yeah.
It's always fascinating to
Or
me.
if you want us to dive in more, I feel like we could do a whole episode about social media. We've taught a class around that. And so maybe we'll do a whole thing just on social media. But if there's one that you want us to dive in a little bit more that we are more knowledgeable on, probably not going to be great at the for sale by owner expired since none of us do that.
I think we know the tactics. It's just something that none of us, that's
None of
not our
It's just
top
not
three.
our-
It's not our
yeah.
top three. So
Yeah.
it's like you can only be successful at so many things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can only do so much, too.
Right.
It's all
Okay.
about your style.
I think that was a great episode.
Yeah. Awesome. All right.
We'll see you guys next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.